what does prescription mean? Prescription, the intended purpose is dehumanization. It's to stop a conversation happening. We look to Palestine and we see the resistance there in every form. You know, I'm not just talking about the armed resistance, but their very existence. They're going to work, they're covering, they're reporting what's happening. The healthcare workers, the journalists, every single civilian in Gaza is part of the resistance. And we see that and we think, well, how can we replicate that in here? What can we do? And was pointed out repeatedly, going to these marches, it has a purpose, but it's the purpose they want you to have. That's it. That's the limitation of your resistance. That's the limitation of your solidarity. Well, Pal Action and then what we've seen is this is what they don't want you to do, because this has a meaningful impact. So when they talk about prescription or prescription, it means that conversation will no longer happen. The same way that Hamas has become a dirty word. You can't actually talk about Hamas in case you get in difficulty because you might be inviting or expressing support for the organization, so you self-censor. Organization venues will not hold you if you talk about Hamas. You have to remove the name from the poster. You have to talk about these people who are fighting back in a very sort of abstract way, and then to be more nuanced, that they want to suspect that you're talking about Hamas and everybody knows you're talking about Hamas. So say one thing is, or two things, is firstly, they can prescribe and ban an organization, but they can't ban the act itself. The action in Palestine Action is not prescribed. That action is still lawful, that action is still necessary, and that action hopefully will increase and escalate to a level that the British government will wish that they never even talked about banning Palestine Action. In terms of generally speaking, I think there's a problem here, or a deeper, much deeper malaise that we haven't actually addressed, and that's the Terrorism Act itself and terrorism laws in general. They need to be abolished. Every single piece of that Terrorism Act, there's pre-existing criminal law that can cover anything in there. We've been covering with Cage and others for decades now, this Terrorism Act. We have cases of people being prosecuted for a Section 57, 58 offences, which means you are caught in possession of something which could be useful for a terrorist. And you would think that might be Semtex or bombs or whatever, but people were getting arrested and charged for having maps of the London Underground. You know, this is the kind of stuff that was happening 15, 16 years ago, but apart from a few notable exceptions, no one's talking about this. It was just happening across the Muslim community, young kids being picked up for looking at websites, for having a plane ticket to a certain country. That enough was what you're preparing for terrorism. You have a map of the underground, you visited this cafe where other people seem to hang out, so you were definitely on the trajectory to carry out a terrorist attack. And so many of our young people were picked up, arrested in complete silence. We let this happen for long enough, but the root of this is not Gaza, it's not Palestine Action. The root of this is the Terrorism Act itself. They need to be abolished once and for all, and so we can reclaim those liberties, those freedoms that we cherish so dearly.